on the awesome tutor. Today we're going to be looking at the kidneys. Now, waste removal. Your body produces a lot of waste from the chemical processes, and this waste needs to be removed. Okay, carbon dioxide, it's removed by your lungs. Excess water and excess salt, your skin helps with that by providing a surface for sweat. Excess protein. Now, excess protein or excess amino acids, because remember proteins are made up of amino acids, your liver breaks them down to give you a substance called urea. And urea is poisonous, so it needs to be removed. And this is removed by your kidneys. And the main roles of the kidneys: homeostasis, keeping the internal body conditions constant; osmoregulation, that has to do with water and salt balance; excretion, the removal of waste. And now we're going to take a closer look at the kidneys. Okay, so the kidneys get rid of urea in the urine. And urine is a substance which is constantly produced by the kidneys and is stored temporarily in your bladder. Here we have a diagram of a kidney. Now this is what we call the renal artery. And the renal artery is where the unfiltered blood, the blood which contains all the waste, the excess ions, excess salt, excess water, the urea which needs to be removed. And the blue tube here is actually your renal vein. And the renal vein contains the filtered blood after the blood has been cleansed of all this waste. And this whole thing here is what we call the cortex. And then these things is what we call the medulla. And the cortex and the medulla, this is where the filtering happens. They contain thousands of filtering units called nephrons. But you don't need to go into too much detail about what those do, because it's just GCSE. And here we have the ureter. And the ureter, this tube, is where the urine goes from the kidney to your bladder. Because remember, urine is produced in the kidney but stored in your bladder. So let me give you just a diagram, a small diagram, of what the bladder looks like. Okay, here's your bladder. And here you have rings of muscles on the side which control the opening and closing of the bladder. And here is the urethra, which is where the urine, exits the body. And obviously the urine will build up here. It's stored in the bladder. Next, okay, so processed food is high in salt. So if you eat a lot of processed food, you're going to therefore take in a lot of mineral ions, and they will be in excess. So you need to get rid of this by your urine. If you drink a little water and not enough to keep you hydrated properly, very little urine is produced. So you save as much water as possible. If you drink a lot of water, obviously water will then be in excess, and it needs to get rid of this, so lots of urine is produced to get rid of the excess water. Okay, to keep osmoregulation, for homeostasis, and blah 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 blah. Next, so the kidneys, how do they work? They filter your blood and then they reabsorb useful substances. And that's basically how it works. It filters the blood, then reabsorbs useful substances. Let's look at that in detail. Now, first of all, the kidney is rich in blood supply. The high percentage of your blood is in your kidneys right now, because it helps the process move faster and move as much waste as possible. Now, excess substances and urea move from the blood to your kidney by a process called diffusion. And they move from the blood to a tube in the kidney through capillaries. I'm going to write that down. Capillaries. Through capillaries. and they move past a semi-permeable membrane where only some substances can pass through. And protein and blood cells are too big to pass through the membrane, so you don't lose any blood or any protein which you need. So what does pass through from the blood to the kidney is urea, water, some ions, and glucose. And then the kidney reabsorbs the useful substances, which we'll look at now. Okay, so the useful substances are absorbed back into the blood by a process called selective reabsorption. So as I said, the useful substances are reabsorbed from the kidney back into the blood. Now, some of your ions that went from the blood to the kidney are reabsorbed, and some of the water is also reabsorbed. And the amount of ions or water that's reabsorbed back into the blood after it has passed through the kidney by diffusion depends on what the body needs. So it's a varying amount, and that's why it's called selective reabsorption. However, all of your glucose that has passed from the blood to the kidney by diffusion, like we talked about just before, is reabsorbed back into the blood. All of it. Now, before we finish, let's talk about urine, because all these items in excess, okay, the ions in excess and all the waste products that need to be removed are removed out of the bladder in the urine. So what does the urine actually contain? It contains waste urea, which we said comes from the breakdown of amino acids in the liver, excess ions and water that have not been reabsorbed back into the blood, and urobilins. Urobilins are just yellow pigments that come from the breakdown of hemoglobin in the liver. And that's what gives your urine its yellow color. Now, hemoglobin, what the hell is that? I might talk about it in a later video, but you don't need to know about it necessarily in this topic. So if you drink a lot of water, obviously, then there will be more excess water in your urine. So then the urine will be more dilute, so then the yellow color will be more colorless. So it depends on how much water you take. But now I'm talking too much, so let's just finish the video. This has been the Awesome Tutor. Bye!